Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi made a statement today that should be the top story in every financial news outlet in America and is receiving far less attention than it deserves. He said on live television and on social media that Iran will attack any energy infrastructure in the region which belongs to an American company or in which an American company is a shareholder. Iran's Armed Forces headquarters issued a separate and even more expansive statement through Fars news agency, saying that all oil, economic, and energy infrastructure belonging to oil companies throughout the region that have American shares or cooperate with the United States will be destroyed and turned into a pile of ashes. These are not vague threats or diplomatic posturing. They are specific operational declarations targeting a clearly defined category of assets, anything in the Middle East that American companies own, invest in, or cooperate with. The companies in that category include some of the largest and most strategically important energy corporations in the world. ExxonMobil has significant operations in the UAE and Iraq. Chevron operates in Kazakhstan and has interests in the region. Saudi Aramco, while Saudi-owned, has American company shareholders, including major American investment firms that hold large stakes in it. Qatar's LNG infrastructure, which supplies a significant portion of Europe's natural gas, involves American companies at multiple levels. The list goes on. I went through Iran's foreign ministry statements, the Armed Forces headquarters statement from Fars news agency, ABC News reporting, Reuters coverage, and the public documentation of American company operations and investments in the Middle East energy sector to give you the complete picture of what this threat means, who is in its scope, and what the market and geopolitical implications are. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly which American companies are potentially in Iran's crosshairs and what the consequences of attacks on those assets would be for the global economy and American investors. Let's start with what Araghchi actually said. The full context of Araghchi's statement is important because it was issued as a direct response to two specific provocations from the American side. First, the Kharg Island strikes on Friday night, in which Trump announced that U.S. Central Command obliterated every military target on Iran's primary oil export hub. Second, Trump's threat that he would destroy Kharg Island's oil infrastructure if Iran continued blocking the Strait of Hormuz. In that context, Araghchi's statement is a clear counter-threat. You threaten our oil infrastructure, we threaten yours throughout the region. The geographic scope he specified, all of the region, not just Iran's immediate neighbors, potentially encompasses energy assets in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, Oman, and other countries where American companies have significant operations. The corporate scope, belonging to an American company or in which an American company is a shareholder, is deliberately broad. With American investment firms like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street holding shares in virtually every major energy company globally, the definition of American shareholder interest could theoretically extend to almost any significant energy asset. The practical targeting implications need to be understood in the context of what Iran has already demonstrated it can hit. Throughout the first 2 weeks of the war, Iran has struck the Ras Tanura refinery in Saudi Arabia, the Ras Laffan gas processing base in Qatar, the UAE's Ruwais refinery complex, Fujairah port, Dubai International Airport, and numerous other energy and infrastructure targets across the Gulf region, according to Euronews reporting. These were strikes conducted against the infrastructure of U.S. allied nations rather than specifically against American company assets. Today's statement changes the targeting doctrine by identifying American corporate ownership as itself a criterion for targeting. RBC Capital's Helima Croft, who has been one of the most analytically rigorous voices on the energy market implications of this conflict, has repeatedly emphasized that Iran's targeting of Gulf energy infrastructure is not random retaliation, but a systematic strategy to impose maximum economic costs on the United States and its allies. Today's statement makes that strategy explicit and expansive. The market implications of Iran following through on this threat would be catastrophic in ways that extend well beyond oil prices. American companies like ExxonMobil, Chevron, Halliburton, Baker Hughes, and others have billions of dollars in physical assets across the Middle East. These are wells, pipelines, refineries, LNG processing facilities, and other infrastructure that took decades and enormous capital investment to build. Physical destruction of those assets would generate immediate insurance claims, force majeure declarations on supply contracts, and production shortfalls that would take years rather than months to remediate, even if the conflict ended tomorrow. The stock market implications for the energy sector would be severe. Insurance underwriters, which are already facing enormous exposure from the conflict, would face additional claims potentially running into the hundreds of billions. American pension funds, which hold significant positions in energy company stocks, would face write-downs of those positions. The diplomatic dimension of Iran's American company threat is also significant. By specifically identifying American corporate ownership as a targeting criterion rather than the nationality of the country hosting the assets, Iran is putting pressure on host governments to choose between accommodating American company operations and facing continued Iranian strikes on their territory. For countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, which have complex relationships with both the United States and Iran, and which, as Reuters reported, are already experiencing mounting resentment at being drawn into a war they did not initiate, this threat adds another layer of coercive pressure. It tells Gulf Arab governments that allowing American companies to operate in their countries makes those countries targets, which creates an incentive to restrict American corporate presence that serves Iran's long-term strategic interest in reducing American economic influence in the region. For American investors and ordinary Americans with retirement savings in energy funds or diversified index funds that include energy company stocks, the threat is both abstract and personal. Most Americans do not think of themselves as energy company shareholders, but through index funds, exchange-traded funds, and pension funds, a significant portion of American retirement savings is invested in companies like ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and other firms with Gulf region exposure. A sustained Iranian campaign against American-linked energy infrastructure in the region would affect those investments directly. The energy sector has already seen significant stock price volatility during the conflict, with production-side companies benefiting from higher oil prices, while refining, distribution, and consumer-facing companies face margin pressure. Let's bring this all together. Iran's foreign minister and its armed forces headquarters issued explicit threats today to destroy all oil and energy infrastructure in the Middle East belonging to American companies or in which American companies hold shares. This threat is a direct response to the Karg Island strikes and Trump's threat to destroy Karg's oil infrastructure. The geographic and corporate scope of the threat is potentially enormous, covering American company assets across Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, and elsewhere. Iran has already demonstrated the capability and willingness to strike major Gulf energy installations throughout this conflict. Following through on this threat would generate tens of billions in insurance claims, years of production remediation, severe stock market impacts on energy companies, and a further escalation of the global energy crisis. Watch whether Iran conducts any strikes in the coming days that are specifically attributed to targeting American corporate ownership rather than general retaliation, because that would signal that this is an operational doctrine rather than a diplomatic threat. If this breakdown helped you understand a direct threat to American economic interests that most coverage is treating as a footnote, please hit the like button and subscribe for daily updates. Drop a comment with your reaction to Iran targeting American companies by name as a war strategy. I will see you in the next one.